Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to show you how I made some vintage inspired Halloween decor. I started by cutting some scrapbook paper to cover the box. I then painted the box black because it had a shiny surface and also to camouflage it in case I cut my paper too short. Next, I glued together 2 wooden candle cups to a wood round and set that aside to dry. If you had a candlestick, you could use that instead. When the paint on the box was dry, I used DIY liquid patina and decoupaged the scrapbook paper onto the box. I then glued the candlestick to the bottom of the box using wood glue and hot glue. The paper on the top of the box was a little big, so I used some sandpaper to remove the excess and then used Ranger Distress ink around the rim to cover the white paper that was showing. I then painted the candlestick black and distressed the edges with sandpaper. I glued the lid on this box because it didn't fit quite right, but you don't have to do this step. Next, I'm going to use a 4-inch styrofoam ball and some air dry clay to make a cat head. I started off by rolling out a thin layer of the clay and putting it on the ball. I kept adding clay until the entire ball was covered. I'm using a little bit of water to help smooth the clay surface. I forgot to flatten the bottom first. So I'm just going to cut that off. Just throw that away. Just making him a little hat. I just used the last of this clay and just rolled it in kind of a bit of a cone shape, a little bit of an indent on the bottom so it can fit on its head. And then I am going to use a little bit of glue. And then also just kind of work the clay down. Just using a little bit of water to help smooth it out. After I glued on the hat, I rolled out a small piece of clay to use as a band on the bottom of the hat and then glued it on and smoothed it out. I'm using some of my clay tools to help blend the clay pieces together. To make the ears, I rolled out a thicker piece of clay and cut it into a triangle shape. After I cut the first one, I used it as my pattern for the second so they would be the same size. Again, I used a little bit of glue and my clay tools to attach the ears to the head. On the front side of the ears, I gave it a slight indentation. For the cheeks, I rolled out 2 small balls of clay and attached them to the face and smoothed them out with water. For the mouth, I rolled out a smaller ball and attached it the same way, but then used a clay tool with a ball on the end and pressed that onto the center of the mouth. To make the nose, I made a small triangle and attached that, again smoothing all the edges where it attaches to the face. I then put it aside to dry overnight. After the clay was dry, I used a sanding block to smooth a couple of areas and then painted the whole thing black. I then used a spouncer brush to add orange paint to his cheeks and also to his nose. I used a pencil to draw the eyes and then filled it in with tan paint. I also added tan paint to the top of the nose and then used orange paint for the mouth, ears, and hat rim. I also used orange paint for the mouth, ears, and the hat bands. To finish the eyes, I painted a black triangle with a dot of tan and used the black and tan paint for the whiskers on his cheeks. I'm just adding lines and dots wherever I think it needs it. I'm not an artist, so I'm just kind of doing this all willy-nilly. To finish it, I watered down some black paint and used a stiff brush to add paint splatters all over it, and then used some dark wax to shade the nose and ears. When all the paint was dry, I used hot glue to attach it to the box and then used black eyelash yarn around the neck. For my second project, I'm using a styrofoam pumpkin to make a diorama. I started by cutting out a square on the front and then removing a lot of styrofoam. I was hoping this pumpkin would have a hollow spot in the middle, but it did not, so it was a giant mess. I already had this pumpkin on hand, so I decided to continue on because I'm kind of stubborn and refuse to admit defeat on this. Once the styrofoam snowstorm was over, I painted the inside black. To make the small house, I'm using a piece of an egg carton along with a piece of a toilet paper roll. I glued the egg carton piece on the top to serve as the roof. I then covered the roof with texture paste, but you could also use spackle. I then set it aside to dry. Next, I used large popsicle sticks to make tombstones. I simply painted them gray and then used rubber stamps to stamp names on them. For the cemetery fence, I used toothpicks and rusty wire. I just painted them and then wrapped them in wire. For the trees, I had some resin branch pieces already made, but you could use real branches instead. To finish the house, I painted on a door and some windows and used pieces of toothpicks for some shutters. I wanted to have lights in the pumpkin, so I poked a hole through the back and pushed the wire of the fairy lights through. I then cut some small pieces of wire to hold the lights tight against the inside of the pumpkin. Next, I painted the copper-colored wire black to blend in. I glued a couple of toothpicks to the bottom of the house so I could attach it to the styrofoam. I got these on the Target dollar spot. They have all these different, I don't know which ones I'm going to use. And then these are just from Hobby Lobby. They're just in the dollhouse section. Now it's time to decorate. Just put whatever you want to use inside it. To finish it, I use black dimensional paint to make swirly designs around the front. I hope you enjoyed these projects. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.